Hello again, friends. Welcome back to the Butterfly Code, where heart-centered entrepreneurs create prosperity and happiness through transformation. I'm your host, Jille Bartolome, and today we're going to go deeper into what real happiness is and why it matters more than ever for the way we live, lead, and create. In our first episode, we cracked open the myth that happiness is something we can earn only after we've checked enough boxes or achieved enough success. We explored how that narrative is totally outdated and how happiness, when rooted in presence and purpose, becomes a foundation for true prosperity. But today, we're going to go even further, because even when we know happiness is valuable, and even when the research confirms it, it's often a deeper emotional resistance to allowing ourselves to actually feeling it. You're going to learn why happiness isn't just a personal experience, but a powerful, intentional practice, and how giving yourself permission to feel good isn't a luxury, but a leadership move. Happiness isn't just a nice idea, it's essential. Burnout, disconnection, and overwhelm have become the norm, especially for heart-centered entrepreneurs who give so much of themselves to others. The science shows us that happiness isn't a reward for doing it all right. It's the foundation that allows us to navigate challenges with resilience, lead with clarity, and create lives and businesses that actually feel good from the inside out. And now more than ever, we need to reclaim happiness as a strategic, sustainable, and soul-aligned way of living. So let's dive in. Let's start with something that's a little hard to admit, but deeply true for so many of us. We say we want to be happy. We set goals, we read the books, we make vision boards, we listen to podcasts about happiness like this one. But when it comes down to it, many of us don't actually feel safe enough to be happy. We think we do, we want to, but deep down, happiness feels unfamiliar and even a little risky. Because here's the thing, joy and happiness is vulnerable. Joy requires us to be open, present, and available to life, to really connect with all that is. And that kind of presence, when you've spent a lifetime bracing for disappointment, navigating trauma, staying busy, or being the strong one, it can feel terrifying. We're taught to hustle, to be productive, to carry the emotional weight of everyone else around us. And over time, we learn that doing is safer than being. That control feels safer than contentment. That striving earns you praise, but softness can be mistaken for weakness. So we stay in the patterns we've known. Productivity, people-pleasing, over-responsibility, emotional caretaking, overthinking, fixing everyone else's fires before tending to our own peace. These patterns aren't bad. They're adaptations. They keep us safe. They're absolutely reasonable. But they also keep joy and happiness at an arm's length. And then, when happiness does show up, when something beautiful happens, when a moment feels light or easy or good, we freeze. Brené Brown's research found that joy is actually the most vulnerable emotion we can experience. Not sadness, not fear, but joy. Because when we feel joy, our brains go into protection mode. We start thinking about what could go wrong. We brace for disappointment. Things can't be this good. We pull away from the very thing we've been craving. She calls it foreboding joy, that instinct to scan the horizon for the storm clouds the moment the sun comes out. And if you've ever found yourself thinking, don't get too comfortable, this is too good to be true, what if I lose it? Who am I to feel this happy when so many people are hurting? Then you, my friend, have foreboding joy. That voice is real. It's wired into our nervous system, but it isn't the truth. Because the truth is, happiness isn't selfish. It's not naive or indulgent. It's not something you need to apologize for. It is, in fact, a radical act of wholeness in a world that profits from your fragmentation. There is an entire system, an entire culture that benefits from you believing you need to do more, prove more, sacrifice more, achieve more before you're allowed to feel peace. But what if that's just a lie? What if your nervous system is worthy of calm now? What if your joy doesn't take away from anyone else's, but actually adds to the collective? What if feeling good is a form of leadership? Because here's what I know for sure. Every time you choose joy, you're creating a new pattern. You're disrupting a legacy of burnout, depletion, and unworthiness. You're saying to your body, your business, your relationships, this is what we do now. We honor what feels good. We build from wholeness. We live in the light without bracing for the dark. That doesn't mean you ignore the hardships or bypass the pain. It means you let both be true, that life can be difficult and beautiful, that you can hold grief and joy, that healing can coexist with laughter. This is emotional maturity. This is the new paradigm, and this is what we've come here to claim. So as we move through the rest of this episode, I want you to hold that truth close. You don't have to earn your right to feel good. You don't have to hustle your way to happiness. And you don't have to apologize for building a life that feels like ease, joy, and alignment. So let's release the guilt. Let's soften the resistance. And let's start telling a better story, one that makes room for your whole self. Now that we've named that internal resistance that many of us feel around happiness, let's talk about something that may surprise you. Your happiness doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone around you, literally. We often think of happiness as a personal thing, a private, internal experience. But research has shown that happiness is actually relational. It's physiological and it's energetic. And one of the most fascinating findings in recent positive psychology and neuroscience is this: emotions are contagious. That's not just a poetic idea, it's science. According to studies by Dr. Nicholas Christakis and Dr. James Fowler, your happiness ripples out through your social network up to 3 degrees of separation. That means your friend's friend's friend is positively impacted and affected by the joy you feel and express, even if you never meet them. They've even named this phenomenon emotional contagion. That's wild, right? I'm waiting for that movie to come out. But it makes sense when you think about it. You've probably walked into a room and felt the energy instantly, whether someone's joyous, anxious, overwhelmed, or calm. Our bodies are wired to read each other, to sync up, and to co-regulate. And if you're a heart-centered entrepreneur, you're more adept at this than most. You see, our brains have what are called mirror neurons. Those are specialized cells that allow us to unconsciously mimic and absorb the emotions of those around us. It's part of an evolutionary design for survival and connection. So when someone's smiling, relaxed, or present, you feel it. When someone is spiraling, tense, or guarded, you feel that too. That means your joy isn't just yours. Your happiness belongs to the people around you. It's a resource, it's an influence, and it's the kind of emotional leadership that doesn't require a title or a platform, just your presence. And this is why I always say happiness isn't selfish, it's generous. It nourishes your clients. It expands into your relationships. It creates a sense of emotional safety for the people around you. When you walk into a room rooted in peace and joy, your nervous system becomes a regulating force for everyone else in the room. When you show up in your business with aligned energy, people can feel it. They're drawn to it. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. We're all so used to looking outward for strategies and systems and results, but your energy is often the thing that moves the needle the most. Because people don't just buy your product, they don't just hire you for your expertise, they're magnetized by your groundedness, your clarity, and your joy. They sense that you're not performing, that you're living in integrity, and that's powerful. Let's also remember that this works both ways. Just like happiness spreads, so unfortunately does anxiety. So does chronic urgency, and so does burnout. So when you're consistently overwhelmed and disconnected, it doesn't just take a toll on your health, it also impacts your relationships, your creativity, your decisions. And this isn't about shame or blame, it's about awareness. Because once you realize your emotions are contagious, you start to take your energy more seriously. And I don't mean that in a performative, good vibes only kind of way, although I do personally love that saying. I mean, you begin to understand that how you feel is not a distraction from the work, it is the work. Your emotional state becomes a business strategy. Your joy becomes part of your leadership toolkit. Your alignment becomes part of your legacy. And maybe most importantly, it becomes a gift to everyone around you. So the next time that voice whispers, "Who am I to feel this good?" Remember, when you choose happiness on purpose, you don't just change your own life. You shift the emotional ecosystem of every place you visit, every room you enter. And that is impact. So if we're going to talk honestly about happiness, we need to get really clear about something. We have been sold a very limited version of what happiness even means. Most of us grew up with images of happiness that were glossy, external, and kind of performative. You know, the perfectly curated life and smile, the calm, collected woman who has it all together, the business owner who's thriving 24/7 with zero inbox stress and perfect morning routines. But that's not real, that's branding. And that illusion of constant joy, it's actually exhausting to try to live up to. And it's in our face with social media more than ever. Because happiness in real life is not a permanent mood. It's not about being cheerful all the time. It's not about pretending hard things aren't happening. And it's not about being positive instead of being human. It's about being whole. Happiness at its core is a byproduct of alignment, of integrity, of living in rhythm with your values, your truth, your actual life, not the one you think you're supposed to be living. It's feeling a sense of internal congruence, even if everything on the outside isn't perfect. It's being able to say, "This is really hard, but I'm okay. This is uncertain, but I trust myself. This isn't how I imagined it, and I can still find beauty here." That version of happiness is much quieter, much more spacious and honest, and much more powerful. This is what psychologist Tal Ben-Shahar teaches in his work on permission to be human. He found that people who allowed themselves to experience the full range of emotions, not just the good ones, were more resilient, more grounded, and more likely to experience deep satisfaction over time. In other words, they were happier. Why? Because resisting sadness doesn't make you stronger, pushing away discomfort doesn't make you more productive, and pretending everything's fine doesn't build confidence. It builds disconnection. Real happiness, sustainable happiness, includes room for grief, doubt, transition, and all the beautiful messiness of being alive. You don't have to wait until you figure everything out to feel at peace. In fact, The moments when happiness sneaks in, like the sun hitting your face, your spouse laughing in the other room, a client message that moves you to tears. Those moments rarely arrive when everything is perfect. They arrive when you're present enough to receive them. So let me offer you a redefinition. Happiness is not a state you live in all the time. It's a muscle you build by choosing alignment and integrity over approval, grace over pressure, and presence over perfection. And when you let go of the idea that happiness has to be big, loud, or permanent, you start to notice it everywhere. You start to access it in simple moments, in breath, in clarity, in choosing to rest without guilt, in honoring a boundary, in saying yes to whatever expands you and no to what drains you. And you start to realize happiness isn't a performance, it's a practice. It's not out there, it's in here. And it becomes available the moment you stop trying to earn it. So if you've been feeling like happiness is just out of reach, like it belongs to some other version of you with a better schedule, more money, a different body, or a less complicated life, I want to gently challenge that. Happiness starts where you are, not later, not someday, not once you've checked every box, but right now, in this breath, in this body, in this season. Let that truth settle into your nervous system, because that's where the code begins to crack open. And that's where the shift starts to take root. I know we've covered a lot today, but I want to be sure to leave you with something really practical, because redefining happiness isn't just about theory, it's about integration. It's about choosing to think differently so you can feel differently and therefore live differently. So here is your 3-part happiness reframe. Number 1, happiness is an act of generosity. This one flips the old guilt narrative completely. When you feel good, when you're grounded, open and joyful, you become a source of energy, not a drain. You regulate the room. You offer calm, warmth, creativity, and possibility. You model what is possible. Your kids can feel it. Your clients can feel it. Your team, your partner, your workmates, your community, they all experience the ripple of your emotional well-being. Think about it. Who do you feel safer with? Someone who's constantly stressed and scattered, or someone who's rooted, soft, and steady, even when things aren't perfect? We don't have to sacrifice ourselves to contribute. In fact, we contribute more when we are resourced and nourished. So when that little voice creeps in, who are you to feel good right now? Answer it with a gentle, who am I not to? Because your joy lifts the frequency of everyone around you. And that's not selfish, that's leadership. The second part of your happiness reframe is that happiness is efficient. This one always makes people pause, but I stand behind it 100%. Happiness makes you more effective, more focused, more magnetic. When you're in a positive emotional state, your brain literally works better. You're more creative, you're more open to ideas, you're more solutions oriented. You don't get stuck in decision fatigue or analysis paralysis. You trust yourself. You take inspired action. You stop wasting energy on second guessing. The science says that. You don't have to feel stressed to feel productive. You don't have to feel anxious to take things seriously. And you don't have to suffer to make things count. Your nervous system can be in a place of calm confidence, and you can still get things done. You can still lead, and you can still build a thriving business. In fact, when you're happy, really intentionally connected to yourself, you get more done. And what you do gets done better, faster, and with way more clarity. So let's just call it what it is. Happiness is a productivity tool. It's a business strategy. Happiness is smart. And the third part of your 3-step happiness reframe is that happiness is foundational. It's not a reward. It's not a nice to have. It's not the cherry on top when everything else is perfect. It's the soil everything else grows in. You don't become happy because your business succeeds. Your business becomes more successful and aligned with your values because you're grounded in your happiness. You don't become happy when your schedule clears. Your schedule becomes more sustainable when you stop glorifying the grind and embrace joy. You don't become happy when you finally reach the mountaintop. You feel the mountaintop more fully because you are present on the climb. This is the core of the butterfly code. This is the shift we're here to live. We're no longer waiting to feel good. We're building lives right now that are designed to support feeling good. Because from that place, everything expands. That's the reframe. Happiness is generous, it's efficient, and happiness is foundational. Let that sink in and let this reframe interrupt the old story every time it tries to creep back in. I want to remind you that this work isn't about being happy all the time, or forcing a mood, or pretending life is easy. Remember that happiness is something you can build intentionally and on purpose, even when things are messy, even when you're unsure, and even when the world says you need to do more before you're allowed to feel good. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to earn your worth. You don't need to wait. Happiness is available now, not as a reward, but as a way. And you're allowed to build your life around what supports your joy. So here is your affirmation for this episode. I begin each day with a choice to live in happiness, joyfully and intentionally. Let it live in your body, let it soften your nervous system, and let it guide you to your next decision. Here it is again. I begin each day with a choice to live in happiness, joyfully and intentionally. Because when you choose happiness on purpose, you don't just feel better, you live better, you lead better. You become more you. And that's the version the world is waiting for.